The Modern Survivalist is glad to provide this service. Firearms 101 for gun haters. If you're a gun hater, you're definitely watching the right video so as to just sound a little less stupid next time you talk about firearms. If you're a gun enthusiast, you may want to watch this video as well. Send it to some of these people that keep talking about a topic they completely ignore, especially journalists these last few days. First of all, assault rifles. An assault rifle is a rifle that has a selector switch for automatic fire. Semi-automatic fire means that each time you pull the trigger, only one round is being fired. Automatic fire, also referred as fully automatic, means that you keep the trigger pulled back and it's going to be firing automatically on its own until the weapon runs out of ammunition. Assault rifles are already heavily restricted in the United States. They are expensive, they are not common, and they're hard to find as well, and they have not been used in mass shootings in recent years. Rapid fire high velocity guns. This is a term used by a CNN reporter a couple of days ago. There's no such thing as a rapid fire high velocity guns. I don't even know what it means, and it just goes to prove the level of stupidity we're listening to these last few days. Talking about a rapid fire high velocity gun is like arguing with a rocket scientist about why aren't they sending more people to the moon, throwing rockets through the air faster with little guys sitting inside with a seatbelt, crashing into the moon, getting off the rocket, walking over the surface of the moon with a suit and a glass bubble over their head, then jumping back to Earth and opening a parachute before landing. That's the level of stupidity that we're listening to. That's what it sounds to us, people that do have knowledge in terms of firearms, in terms of self-defense, when people that know nothing about it keep talking and babbling about it and expect to be taken serious. You cannot take seriously someone that has no knowledge on this topic whatsoever, and everything that comes out of their mouth is complete stupidity and ignorance. Now, this is just pretty unique in terms of the gun debate. You will rarely see a doctor arguing with a reporter that has no medical background, and the reporter answering back to the doctor about a medical procedure having been done wrong, about why didn't you just touch there and move the heart from one place to another, why didn't you just take the brain from one guy and shove it into the skull of someone else. That's how stupid it does sound. Civilian guns and military guns. Another common stupid phrase these last few days. Why is it that military guns are on the streets? Military guns have no place in the hands of civilians and in our streets. Well, again, you obviously don't know this, but 99% of firearms do have a military or defensive background of some sort because they have been designed that way since the beginning. Practically every firearm you could think of, it doesn't matter if it's for target shooting, if it's for hunting, the design itself has been made at some point so as to have a military or defensive application, and it is inherited in that design. It's not much different. Bolt action rifle, a scoped bolt action rifle that's being used for sniping. It's not that different from the ones you use for big game hunting. There's very few differences in those designs. The weapon you would be using for action shooting sports and action shooting competitions is pretty much the same as the ones used in the military. There's not much of a difference. Same would go for defensive applications. The pistols, the handguns, the rifles used for defensive applications in homes of law-abiding citizens are really not that different from the ones used by military personnel or the police as well. So there's no like, well, these are civilian guns and these are military guns. It is pretty much everything is made with a defensive purpose in mind when it comes to firearms. Magazine capacity. The idea of restricting the magazine capacity so as to make, I don't know what, street safer, I don't know what it is they're expecting to. Last time we had a 10 round limit magazine capacity. That only means, that you just have, one more second for doing a reload. Reloading a pistol takes about 1 second, 2 seconds. It's not that different having 4, 5, 10 round magazines from having 2 or 3 magazines that have a 15 round capacity, 16, 17 round capacity. If a mass shooter wants to go and shoot innocent people that have no way of defending themselves, it's not much of a difference if he has 5, 10 round capacity limit. Besides that, again, these are things that these gun haters obviously ignore. It's not that difficult to modify magazines so as to have a greater capacity. Basically, you just get 2 magazines, you cut them, solder them together, and join the spring on the inside as well. It is going to be working. I've used magazines that way myself in the past. It is really not that hard to do those. So you're just basically messing up with people, law-abiding citizens that want to buy a magazine of normal capacity for their defensive use. You're not really hurting in any way a criminal that is intended of doing harm, no matter of magazine capacities and such nonsense. The idea of USA being so much worse than everywhere else because of guns. People, if you compare USA with many countries that have much worse gun laws, you will notice that in many cases it has nothing to do with the proportion in terms of crime. Brazil, for example, has incredibly outrageous gun laws. Pretty much everything useful for defense is restricted in Brazil, yet it is a hellhole of a place where there's lots of crime, lots of violence, and yes, violence with guns as well. In spite of the restrictive gun laws in Brazil, you can basically walk into any favela, buy as much guns of all sorts, pistols, assault rifles, true assault rifles that fire automatically, semi-automatic rifles, AKs, ARs, FALs. You can buy every single gun you could think of in any favela in Brazil in spite of the laws. That's basically because criminals do not follow laws. So it is really a very poor point to attempt to make. Besides that, if you compare USA to countries such as Canada, New Zealand, Switzerland, Sweden, these are all countries where there are quite a bit of guns. There are plenty of guns in these places, and civilians can buy as many ARs as they want and use them in defensive applications or used for sports. In some of these countries, New Zealand has plenty of guns. There's quite a bit of a gun culture in New Zealand, and it's still one of the safest places in the planet with some of the best standards of living. No one is thinking of restricting guns in New Zealand. No one is thinking of restricting guns in Switzerland even. Switzerland is one of the countries every other country would like to replicate or be a little bit like Switzerland in some way, yet they have plenty of guns. They have quite a bit of a gun culture, and no one is thinking of restricting guns. And those that have suggested doing so are quickly turned down by the rest of the people. UK, often mentioned as the paradise of safety because of their gun laws. You probably should do a little bit more research regarding UK. What is actually UK? UK is not only England, it's several other places. You will find out that the safest places in UK are the ones that have the less restrictive gun laws. Do more research about that. Try sounding less stupid next time you say, UK is safe because they have tight gun laws. The safest places to live in UK happen to be the same places in which gun laws are less restrictive. Find that out on your own, my dear gun hater. Number 6, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be restricted. It's basically the Second Amendment. Here we go. And it's not the 4th, the 5th, the 13th Amendment. It's the Second Amendment. It comes right after the right to say whatever it is you think, right? Of free speech, basically. Why is it that it comes right after that? Because obviously the founding fathers of the United States of America thought it was that important. It was almost as important as the right to speak your mind, say what you think. US is very unique in many ways. In one of those ways in which it is unique, it's because of the Second Amendment. if you do research, if you study history in other countries as well, you will find out that right after becoming independent or free, right after a nation is formed, the very first thing the people that use guns so as to fight for that liberty do is restrict those same guns they just used. If you look at Fidel Castro's speech right after winning the revolution in Cuba, the first thing Fidel Castro says is, hand over the guns. He says, I know, I'm basically quoting, translating from what he said in Spanish. He said, I know that some of you are keeping your guns. Guns have no place in your hands. They should be in our depots. Turn over your guns. Why is it that you need guns? We just won the revolution. There's no enemy for you to fight. Turn over your guns. That's the kind of thing that you would expect from someone like Fidel Castro. And it's no coincidence that most countries end up doing that. In a moment of brilliance, of divine illumination, I would think, the Founding Fathers had this moment of brilliance so as to not be scared of their own people, of themselves, and recognize that right to be arms. Whenever it is that someone argues that the Second Amendment is about the military, militia is not military. It's not the U.S. military as you know it right now. The militia is actually the armed population, such as it was back in those days. And regulated does not mean regulated the same way it means right now. If you read some of those texts from the same time period, well-regulated actually means well-equipped, well set in terms of the equipment and in terms of clothing, of food, of gear in general, and of course firearms, which was the key point here. It is considered that an armed population will always be able to ensure a free state. That's why the Second Amendment sounds as it does. There's no reference to this to be in terms of organized military force of the country. It is the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed in any way. So it's pretty straightforward, and it is basic of what makes US what it is. Unique in so many ways in terms of individual freedom, which is not as common as we would all like it to be. You really cannot do much about the Second Amendment. If you don't like the Second Amendment, it's pretty much an essential part of what being an American is. First Amendment, common in many other places. Many countries have something somewhat similar to the First Amendment. The right to say whatever it is you believe in, right to free speech and such. Many countries have that. Not many countries have the Second Amendment, which is the way in which you back up the first one. What ends up happening is that, yes, in many other countries you're granted the right of free speech, but they made sure you have no way in which you could possibly enforce yourself upon an authoritarian and tyrannical government. That is something that most other countries have obviously kept out of their Bill of Rights for all these reasons. And given that U.S. is so unique in so many ways, and one of those ways is in the right of the people to keep and bear arms. If you really don't like that, you have other places to go to, and this takes me to point number 7: Deport Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan is this British reporter working in U.S., taking advantage of all the benefits that living in U.S. has. Yet at the same time, he feels he has the right to criticize and basically insult all gun owners, and in my opinion, Americans in general. So this is a British guy living in US, enjoying the rights of living in US, at the same time insulting people by saying they're stupid for having guns, and saying that the gun culture in US is stupid, they're all idiots, everyone in US is a complete moron because they have guns, and we are much smarter than you guys are, and whatever. Yes, there is... I'm going to be adding the link below, and keep it in mind. Piers Morgan, he said that he would be deporting himself if America does not change its gun culture. So Piers Morgan is basically threatening Americans that he's going to be leaving on his own will. I think it would be better if he just leaves rather than just threaten about leaving. So I'm going to be adding the link below so as to sign this petition in the White House so as to deport Piers Morgan, who is obviously someone that does not like being in U.S. by any means. Let's do the guy a favor and send him back home. But it seems that they don't like him in UK either. But you know, he will probably find a rock to crawl under eventually. Guys, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed Firearms 101 for gun haters. I hope you have a little bit more information for making your points and not sounding that silly. Take care. Have a great day. See you on our next video.